So, all right, cool. All right, well, here, it's that time. First guest, April Wright. Here she is. Let's welcome April. You're live on Totally Driven Radio.
Hi. How's it going?
How are you? Good.
I'm good. I'm also calling from LA.
You're in LA too. Look at all you LA people.
I know. All the action is out here, I guess. I don't know.
Absolutely. I was going to say, when you're, especially you, I mean, you're making documentaries and you're doing the thing. I guess that is the best place to be, isn't it?
Mhm. And the weather's nicer most of the year. We can have drive-in season year-round. Yeah, we can have drive-ins open all year. Yeah.
Nice. So I got to say, when this was approached to me, I was like, all right, documentary, which I love documentaries. So, and then when I was checking out the website, I'm like, ooh, this is cool. I can get into this. So here we are, and April has done a documentary. It's called Going Attractions, and it is about drive-in movie theaters. So what made you want to do a documentary on drive-in movie theaters?
Well, I went to drive-ins growing up, and I also am a fan of unusual architecture. Like, I'm kind of obsessed with the Seattle Space Needle and the St. Louis Arch and things like that, and drive-ins were kind of that way, too. They were just massive screen towers. Some of them had houses in them, huge marquees, neon, all this stuff. So when they started closing down in the 80s, I would actually go out of my way to kind of look at them and just be like, wow, what must this have been in its heyday when it was all lit up and people were here? And so I just basically wanted to find out what happened to them. How could drive-ins be going away?
Yeah, it's in my area. Like I'm from like the Philadelphia area, and there was one always. I remember a little kid being in the 70s. I grew up in the suburbs of Philly, and there was one that we would pass all the time when we would go to South Philly to visit our relatives, and it was the 61st Street Drive-In Theater, which I was going through, and it was not on your list of places that you visited.
Nope. I traveled the country to make, this was a 7-year project, so this was a long side project. And I did travel the whole country. I drove all around to every single state. Alaska is the only place that I didn't get to. But I tried to find either open drive-ins or abandoned drive-ins. And if a drive-in had, like, really awesome photos, I would go to see what became of it, what's there today. A lot of times it was a Walmart or some kind of, big shopping store. So I didn't make it to all of them. I mean, there were almost 5,000 drive-ins at one time. So if the 61st Street got torn down at some point and there wasn't anything left of it or there weren't any good photos, I probably wouldn't have looked for it. But I tried to see as many as I could. I ended up seeing about 500 total, drive-in locations making the film, which is a lot.
Yeah, and when I was going through the list, I was like, oh, my Lord. So you drove around the country doing all that? That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and actually I'd maybe seen 30 states when I started the project, so it was kind of an interesting side effect to get to almost all the other states and to really see the country at that level. Because, most of the drive-ins that are left and the remains that are left aren't in cities with airports. They really are in all the little towns scattered around the country. So it was an interesting perspective to kind of see the country and see what was left of the drive-ins everywhere.
Now, when you came across ones, like you were saying, like some that are like either abandoned or now like Walmarts or something like that, did you get kind of upset or sad? Like, what did they do here? Like, why did they do that?
Very much so. And I think that's kind of one of the points that comes across in the film is how the country has changed over the last 50 to 60 years, and in some ways not for the better. Because, a lot of where we used to, have drive-ins that were like nice outdoor spaces where we used to go spend time with our families or with our friends, they've been traded for, shopping centers where you can buy mass quantities of toilet paper or whatever, and it's just kind of weird that we spend our time doing that instead of doing family things a lot of the time nowadays. So There's
Right.
definitely a social commentary. And I did get upset, when you go and people always say real estate is what got the drive-in, but when you drive around and you see, empty lots that used to be drive-ins or abandoned drive-ins, you're like, that's not the whole story. It's not always real estate. The land isn't always developed. So I realized there were a lot of other factors that sort of culminated at the same time.
Yeah, when I read that, when you wrote that in the bio, that really stood out to me because, like, the one I was saying at 61st Street in Philly, when that closed down, it literally sat there for years, just an empty lot for years, and as time went on, you watched the weeds grow. And the screen was there for, I might exaggerate a little, but maybe 10 years afterwards, maybe, like a 5 to 10 year range where that screen was still sitting there, and it was just a weeded, empty drive-in lot. And now it's probably, I think, like a junkyard or something like that, because it's surrounded by multiple junkyards. So, but I think that's what I think it is now. But there's another one that was right by where I live now that also wasn't on your list, and it was the Route 202 drive-in in Westchester, Pennsylvania, I think it was considered, or Glen Mills. And that one, I remember years ago too, after it had closed, the screen, same kind of thing, like the screen was up for many years, and it was just all fenced off, and you saw the weeds. But now I think it's just like an empty grass lot.
Yeah, it does make you kind of sad because right now there is kind of a drive-in renaissance happening. People are kind of rediscovering the drive-in, and most of the ones that are left are really busy. And a lot of people are looking for drive-ins to, reopen. And, if they would have just lasted, another handful of years, maybe somebody could have brought those back. But it's a shame.
Has there been any where that literally sat there for years and people have come in and tried to redo it, or?
Oh, yeah, there's been a lot, actually. I had to look up statistics for another interview, and since the year 2000, there's been about 35 or more old drive-ins refurbished and reopened, brought back to life, and there's been another 35 to 40 brand new ones built from scratch. So that's a pretty large number when you realize there's under 350 drive-ins total, and that 70 or 75 of those are new or brought back to life in the last decade. So that's kind of cool. Although the total number is still going down slightly each year because there's still an equal number that are being torn down. So it's not no one knows really what the future is going to be, but people are optimistic that they're making a little bit of a comeback.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool to see. That really would. Now, how about with when you approached these drive-in theaters that were still in business to do your interviews for the movie? What was the reaction? Were people kind of thankful and wow, we're getting some respect and people care?
Well, that's a good question because there have been, every once in a while there's articles or there's, things about drive-ins, but they all seem to be on the same theme, like nostalgia. Like, oh, we used to go to the drive-in back in the day, and we used to put these funny speakers on the windows. Isn't that funny? And, it's more sort of that point of view. But for these 350, families that are keeping these drive-ins going, it's not nostalgia. This is their everyday business. They have customers, and their businesses are thriving. So that kind of, drive-ins are done. Publicity, they don't like it as much because it doesn't sort of get the word out that drive-ins are out there. You can go to them, you can have a good time, and they're fun. So they were a little skeptical of me at first, and what my angle was and what story I wanted to tell. And I basically told them that my film is like a biography. It's the life story of the drive-in. It's from the beginning, all the ups and downs, all the way up to the present day. So I was going to cover, the good stuff, the bad stuff, the stuff in the history that, maybe they don't want to emphasize today, but they told me that was okay. They trusted me to tell the story, and especially because I put so much time into it and had such a commitment to it myself, that they ended up being extremely supportive. So yeah, I do what I can just to let people know that there are still drive-ins out there, and if you look for them, they're doing well, and that people should go check them out, especially if you haven't been to one in a while.
I've never been to a drive-in.
So you just passed those empty ones, but you never went?
Yeah. You know what?
That's crazy.
I remember being a little kid and going past there when it was still open, and I think it was like Grease or Saturday Night Fever was playing on it. I mean, I remember that. I mean, and that was what, like 78 or so. But
yeah.
I never went to a drive-in theater. And as a matter of fact, there's one in New Jersey, in southern New Jersey, and my wife has said a few times, we should go. Yeah, that one's in it's called Adelphi, and it's in Vineland, New Jersey. Yes.
And that is one of the ones that was closed for a long time and got brought back to life. So that's one that was reopened. And it's cool. It's a really nice drive-in. Yeah, it's so funny that you say that you never went, because there's a few people, if you were really in Philadelphia that were in cities that I talked to that never went to one. Now, most people, I mean, if you grew up between like 1940 and 1980, almost anybody you talked to went to a drive-in. It was just part of, growing up in the United States in those years. It was just something that mostly everybody did.
Right.
But now that, there's so few, you start running into more and more people who say they've never been to one. It's definitely an experience you should have, and that's what it really is. It's not about seeing the movie. It's about this whole experience where you can talk to the people you're with, you're outside, you're under the stars, you're watching a film, you're eating. It's like, all sensory experience and kind of making a memory. Even if the film is horrible, it doesn't matter. You can have a great time at the drive-in.
It's funny, too, because as of late, I've fell in love with this movie theater, which is actually right by where the old 202 movie theater was, where they've reconverted it into, like, this palace where they have a bar, they have a restaurant in there, they have recliners, and it's like now I'm like going to the movies every week because of this. And when I was going through and doing the research and all, I actually felt bad. I was like, wow, I've fallen in love so much with this movie theater. I feel bad now that I haven't given a drive-in theater a chance.
Well, you know what? Strangely, those two things kind of go hand in hand in a way, because, there was multiplexes for a while, and it was sort of this experience for younger people where, multiple screens and just more of a crazy scene on Friday and Saturday nights. But now you can basically create a screening room at your house. We've got big flat screen TVs and Blu-rays and downloadable stuff, and you can get such a good experience at home that now the trend in the industry is, just novelty exhibition and different experiences that you can't get at home. And so the upscale experience that you're describing is definitely happening all over the country in indoor theaters, because it makes it a whole experience where you can eat and recline in your chair and have a drink and watch your movie, and it's sort of a whole night out. And drive-ins are exactly that same idea, that it's a novelty experience you can't exactly create at home. And, same thing, you can drink and eat and hang out with people and experience the drive-in. It's a night out as well. So they kind of both are getting popular because of that same reason. So if you like those kinds of theaters and that kind of experience, you may also like, the outdoor experience of going, on a nice night, go to the drive-in, try that out.
Yeah,
I'm
definitely on it.
Especially if you have kids, it's especially a good environment for kids.
Now, I just got messaged by my co-host, Nick. He's just like, I can't believe you've never been to a drive-in. Now, I know when I presented this to Nick, he said, oh, absolutely. He said, I used to work in a drive-in when I was a kid. Am I correct, Nick?
Yeah, well, what it was is we spent the summers with my grandfather in Austin, Texas, and he was a projectionist, and his wife ran the concession on the inside, and her parents actually owned the drive-in. And what me and my brother would do is we would do car runs. We'd get people their popcorn, and they'd tip us, and we'd just make a little bit of, extra money. But I remember seeing Crocodile Dundee. That's what I remember seeing on the screen.
That's awesome. Austin had a bunch of drive-ins. Do you remember the name of theirs by chance?
You know what? I don't. It was a really long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah, they had a bunch of them down there.
Grade.
There's a couple I show in the film that got sort of demolished in the 80s. They don't have any physically built drive-ins, but they do have what do they call it? The Blue Starlight Urban Drive-In. They have one kind of set up in, I believe it's like in a parking lot. I haven't been there to see it in person, but they are trying to bring back that idea. A lot of places are doing things like that where they've lost their drive-ins. They're trying to do things with like blow-up screens or just walk-in outdoor screenings. That kind of stuff is really popular because people are missing their drive-ins and they want to create that same kind of experience. We've got a couple of those in LA too.
Yeah, I noticed that out here in Phoenix, there's a lot of, they're not there is a drive-in out here that is still active, and we actually go to, not regularly, but we've been there a couple of times.
The Glendale 9?
The Glendale Drive-In, yeah. And we do pro wrestling there on the weekend mornings, actually.
Yeah, that's a huge one. That's one of with 9 screens, that's one of the biggest ones left in the country right now. That one was built later in the 70s as a multiplex. Pretty much all the drive-ins that got built later in the 70s, which was almost at the end of the big run, they got built as multi-screens because that's what they were doing with indoors too. So that's kind of cool. There's a lot of those still left around.
Wow.
Yeah, during the weekend afternoons as well, they do like a big swap meet. So I think they do a good job just like making sure that they can diversify or bring whatever money and people in they can. So
yeah. Cool.
Now, was there any like that like really moved you, like you went and saw and you were just like, wow, like it really just touched your heart?
There's a lot of really great ones. Any drive-in that's still going today is a good drive-in because the people that own it are working hard to keep them going and keep it alive. But I'm partial to the ones that try to maintain some of their authenticity. So if they've still got their original tower, if they've still got some speakers, if they've still got a retro snack bar, those are pretty cool. And there's a lot of those left around the country. One that I really, really liked was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and it was a huge wood screen, 2-sided screen, so one movie on one side, another movie on the other side. And it was all wood, and it was 9 stories high, so it was the size of a 9-story building, just humongous. And I got to go inside the tower and see all the wood inside it, and it had been standing since the 40s. And it's where Francis Ford Coppola had shot The Outsiders. So it had a little bit of history there, too, yeah. So that was one of my favorites. And a couple of years ago, I guess in 2010, it actually caught on fire, just kind of a random spark at the top of the tower, and it burnt it to the ground in like 30 minutes. And I show this in the movie because as sad as it was, it ended up being kind of an uplifting story because the community wanted their drive-in so badly that they rallied and all this support came in, all this money came in, and they were able to rebuild it and reopen it less than 2 years later in 2012. So that one's called the Admiral Twin, and if you're on Route 66 passing through Tulsa, you will see it.
Wow. Now, how about, like you mentioned that one, how about like the one that was in the movie Grease? Is that one still standing, or?
No. That one was the Pickwick, and that was out in Burbank. And that one also you can see in the film with Roy Scheider, Blue Thunder.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone remembers that movie, but
that was actually just on TV the other night.
Oh, really? Yeah, it's these helicopter pilots with this, high-tech new kind of copter, and there's a whole action sequence towards the end of the film where they're chasing a suspect and they're around that drive-in. So, yeah, that was kind of a go-to movie drive-in a little bit because it was in Burbank. But that one it's a shopping thing. It's a grocery store and like a a taco drive-through place or something. So, yeah, that one's gone. And a lot of, celebrities told me they used to go to that one growing up. Like, I talked to Ron Howard once, and he said that was one that he used to go to and that he used to sneak into.
Oh, that's funny.
Yep.
Wow. That's cool, though. That is really cool. So, all right, 7 years you spent putting this together. When it was all said and done and it was completed, was it relief or that true proud moment?
That's a great question. I don't know. I still have kind of mixed feelings about it because it's one of those things where when you work on a project that long, you kind of wish you could go back to the beginning and you would do some things differently because, you're learning all the way along. So some of it I'm like, I wish I could have done this. I wish I could have done that. But most people watching the movie don't see that. I mean, that's just how I feel about it because I was so close to material and have worked on it for so long. But so yeah, it's relief, and yet it's totally not done because ever since I finished the film, I've been traveling the country again, screening the film at theaters, at a lot of drive-ins, but also at a lot of indoor theaters too.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, and showing the film. So I've just been booking it a lot, and this year we've been getting invited to some festivals, and it's out on VOD now. If you have cable TV on demand or iTunes or pretty much any streaming service, you can get it right now. Yeah, it's on Google Play, it's on iTunes, it's all over the place. So I've been doing a lot of traveling with it and visiting drive-ins that I missed while making the film, but now I'm getting to see more of them as I'm showing the film. So I'm still living it. I'm still very much in drive-in world pretty much every day. So I don't know. After making this film, it's probably always going to be a little bit of part of my life is just sort of being a little bit of a drive-in expert, which was kind of a side effect of making the film that I didn't expect. But I definitely know I could talk to you all day about drive-ins.
Now, was this the first movie you have made?
It's the first documentary. I wrote and directed a film that was really indie that went to some festivals and is out now, and I wrote and produced a horror film called Killer Yacht Party that Troma released. They're the ones who did Toxic Avenger and that kind of thing. So that one, the one that Troma released was actually the first film I made, and then I started working on the drive-in, and then I made another feature film in like 3 or 4 shorts while I was finishing this one. So this was kind of the overarching project while I did a bunch of other things in between.
How about anything else in the works? Any other horror documentaries? Or?
Yeah, actually, another horror-y thing that I wrote is supposed to be shot later this year. And we're also working on a TV version of the drive-in and kind of a, reality show of the people that are keeping drive-ins going today. And I'm also starting to shoot another one similar to this, but about the single-screen indoor movie palaces, the big ornate theaters that there used to be in every big city.
Right.
So working on a lot of things.
Nice. Keeping in the movie, I like that. That's cool because a lot of them theaters have been converted to other things beside movie theaters now, whether it's actual theaters now or
Mhm. Yep. Yeah. And as I've been traveling to shoot that, I mean, it's different than how I was saying the drive-in movie to capture all that. I had to go little town to little town to little town. The indoor movie palaces is actually easier because most of the time the big places were in city centers, and most major cities sort of have a theater row where they either, still are if they've been restored or where they used to be. So I've been kind of, just trying to hit up as many major cities and get as many of them on film as I can. So it's different and interesting.
So, and do you drive around, and you said you drive all around the country doing this?
Yeah, I have been. When I made the drive-in film, I took multiple road trips, and I literally took a month at a time, more than once, traveling and shooting the film. This one, for the indoor movie theaters, since mostly they're in big cities, I've just been sort of catching cities that I'm flying into or where I'm doing appearances for the drive-in film. I'll try to get what I can in the area. So I'm still traveling.
I was going to say, like, how many miles do you have in your car? Because that sounds like a lot of driving.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, when I was making Going Attractions, the drive-in documentary, I mean, tens of thousands of miles, yeah, because I drove for, months straight many times. I probably, if you drove for 3 or 4 months straight, how many miles would that be? That's how many I did for the film, a lot.
Wow. All right, where can we get the movie? You said it's on demand, but how about physical copies of it?
Yeah, so the whole title of it is called Going Attractions: The Definitive Story of the American Drive-In Movie. And, so cable TV, pretty much all cable networks, if you go on the on-demand, you can order it up. It's like $4.99. It's on iTunes, it's on Vudu, it's on Sony Network, PlayStation, Google Play. And then physical DVDs, they're going to be on BarnesandNoble.com and Amazon.com starting September 5th. And you'll also be able to get them directly off our website very soon. It's just www.goingattractions.com. Or if you want one now, you can just shoot me an email, info@goingattractions.com, and I can actually send you one in advance of the release.
Awesome. Very good. Well, congratulations on all this. This sounds very interesting. I can't wait to watch it. I'm going to be watching on demand now very soon.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to make, and I mean, they're so much part of Americana, and such an important part of our history. It's good that they're coming back, and it's good to try to get people to look at that history and kind of appreciate, some of the things that maybe we're losing a little bit as a country, but that we should think about.
Yeah, and now you're leading the way for it, so you're the one raising the flag and keeping it going.
Trying to help get the word, yeah. Well, the people running the drive-ins are raising the flag, but I'm trying to just help get the word out.
Awesome. All right, so April, thanks so much. It's been a lot of fun. Good luck with everything, and I can't wait to watch it. I'll let you know when I do.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks. This was fun.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay, bye.
Bye. All right, everybody, there she goes, April Wright from the movie Going Attractions. That's awesome. That's on demand.
It's weird, man, because you're older than me and have never been to a drive-in. Like, I'm still a little perplexed.
I'll give you the quick reason. Sean's on hold, so Sean, just give me two seconds so I can explain. The reason I never went to a drive-in is because, not to be a bummer, but my father died, when I was very, very young. And after my father died, my mom stopped driving. She was literally scared to drive. So my mother's parents ended up moving in with us, and they were at that point like in their 70s. And at night, my grandfather was the one that drove. He couldn't see in the dark.
Right.
So there was no going to a drive-in movie theater. So the extent of my drive-in movie theater was me driving my ass onto my couch or my carpet and watching 3, 6, or 10. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So